Hello everyone, it's Thumper the Rabid, and it is Thursday, November 7th, 2019. It's White Day, and we have the new medium battery. Made it to the main release branch along with the new mechanic for the batteries, which is they now have all these extra stats. They don't just discharge at full load like a timer or a clock anymore. They actually have a variable output load. So when you put one small power consuming item on them, like let's say this light, take the output, plug it into the light, you'll see it only uses 1 unit of power, active usage 1. And so it has a much longer time left to operate because it's not consuming the whole 50 units automatically anymore. Now, this new medium battery in staging only had 900 watt rust watt minute capacity. Now it's got 9,000, so it's good for about 3 hours at 50 units of output. So a good new addition to the game, and all of the batteries have this mechanic. So whether it's the medium battery or small battery or large battery, they all have this mechanic now. So that's great news if you're a cave-based person, or if you were just having a hard time managing battery load with high power circuits. So I want to get to a user request from Spinnzz off of YouTube, who asked how much power would be required to power 15 turrets and a battery backup containing 4 large batteries. How little power can you send to the batteries and still charge them? Well, so as I mentioned just a moment ago, and if you've watched the staging reviews I've posted, the way these batteries work now is they still have, as you can see in the description, an 80% charging efficiency. But because they don't always run at full output load, and because they changed it so that the maximum input is actually 4 times what the output can be, it means that this battery here, which can put out a maximum of 50 units, you can actually put 200 into now, which means you can charge the battery while it is being used. That basically eliminates the need for all of the UPS circuitry that I've used in every previous video. So I got a lot of updates to do to basic videos and component guide now, because the mechanics have fundamentally changed with this update. So yes, asking how much you can put in to charge a battery is actually a valid question now. I'm not sure where exactly the requirements come from, but let's go ahead and set out the 15 turrets that you asked for. And actually, I'm just going to dip away for a moment and do that, because I don't want to make you watch me actually put out 15 turrets, because that would be boring. So stand by. And we're back. Okay, so here we go. As Spinnzz had asked for, we've got 15 turrets and 4 large batteries. So let's see what we can do with this. This is a lot different than what we used to do. First of all, you never could have done one string of 15 turrets in the past, because you, at least not off of a battery, because your biggest battery only puts out 100 units. And even if we're not using the outputs on these things, they each need 10 units of power. Plus these branches need a unit of power for themselves. So in addition to the 150 units here, I got 14 branches. So you basically need like 165 units coming out. Well, you can do that with 2 batteries. But in the past, if you laid down 2 batteries, the only way you could get 200 units of power out of this was to lay down a root combiner. Well, since they would run at full output, it wasn't possible to charge them, so you couldn't use root combiners after the batteries unless you wanted to manually charge them all up and then connect them and then disconnect them and then charge them, and etc., etc. You couldn't use them as a battery backup or for any extended period of time. Now we can connect batteries to root combiners and still charge them. So I'm not sure where the 4 batteries are going to come in here quite yet, but let's go ahead and hook these up. So I'm going to hook up these 2 large batteries to a root combiner so that we have 200 units of power available, and then we'll watch. Should power up all these suckers. There we go. That's pretty. glad I didn't set myself as an enemy here. And you can see all the way down at the end, you still have some 56 units of power left over. So I was just about right on that calculation, not quite. So the only reason I can think of that you'd want 4 batteries here is because you want to extend the life of how long these operate. And you can see right now, one of the disadvantages of root combining batteries is that the root combiner presently double dips on the power load. So even though this is only using about 100 and, let's just for argument's sake call it about 160 units of power, you would think it would only pull 80 from each battery, but that's not how it works out with the root combiners right now. If you're pulling a load of over 100, it's going to look like a full load on both batteries. It doesn't split it up evenly like you would expect. So that introduces a challenge. The only way you can charge this battery is if you're putting 20% more than its load in, which is fine. These are each using 100 right now, so all we got to do is put in 20% more than that, which in my previous videos I made the mistake of saying it was 120. That's not true. It's actually about 125 because 80% of 125 is about 100 if you round it off. So what we really need to do is put 125 units of power into each of these batteries if we want them to maintain their charge, or more than 125 if we want them to increase their charge. So that means we can't just connect one more battery to this to extend its life, because one battery can only put out 100. It can't put out 125. There is a way around this. So Spinnzz, this is up to you in your scenario. You can either root combine 2 large batteries or 1 large battery and 1 medium battery into this guy so that you can put 150 units in and actually charge it. Or you can put, or just forget the second set of batteries and just worry about charging these batteries here. So presuming that runtime is important to you, I'm going to go with the bare minimum because you were asking, you used the word minimum, so I'm going to try and do this with minimum. So what I'm going to do is actually use 2 medium batteries in the mix here as well. I might move these around a little bit because this is going to get a little bit confusing. So put that one there. So I'll put this one. And I'm actually going to move guys over where they're a little easier to use. And I'm going to leverage some more root combiners here. This is kind of a wasteful scenario, not particularly efficient, but this is how we'll make this work. So we're trying to extend our runtime beyond the 4 hours that the large battery can put out by itself. We're going to do that by adding the 4 hours of this and the 3 hours of this, and their maximum output of 150 respectively, because that'll get us 150 input, which is enough to charge this battery while it is under full load. I'm going to do the same thing over here on the other side. So I know you said you had 4 large batteries. I hope you can get 2 mediums as well. All right, so there you go. This scenario right here will work as long as we then charge these batteries. Now, we're past our runtime question here, so that opens up a lot of possibilities. All we need to do is put 125 into this, and then this guy's maximum is 50, so we need to put in, shoot, what is that, 63? Is that right? Yeah, 63. So we need to put 125 into here, we need to put 63 into here. That shouldn't be a problem. We've got all kinds of things that make power. First of all, we've got wind turbines. They're usually pretty good for putting out some decent juice. We've got generators now, so if you got fuel, you could use those. We've got our solar panels. Those are great. So if I need, just to maintain, I need a 188 units of power. Probably want to charge them too. So I'm going to go over 188. Let's put 250 or so into each of these batteries. They can, the medium battery can take up to 200. This guy can take up to 400. So let's just say, let's shoot for 200 each. So let's look for 800 units of power total for our power supply here. So let's see what we can get out of this stuff here. I'm going to throw down a couple wind turbines. See how they're behaving right now. No power. Are you serious? 98. Well, that's better. That's just depressing. Oh, because it's doing the physics thing. It's directly in the line of the wind, so it's pretending it has no juice. Actually, what I might be able to do is myself a couple more wind turbines here. I'm gonna go build kind of a larger test bed this time around. So I'm gonna spread some out back here where they're not going to impede each other quite as badly. See if that will result in a little more effective power. And because solar is reliable, just like the real world, throw some of these suckers down here too. Now let's do some root combiner mayhem here. I need combine these, combine all that together. So let's do that. This is that moment where I have that elevator bossa nova royalty-free music in my head, which I'm actually gonna play for you because I'm a jerk that way. This guy, since he seems to be useful. Actually, why not grab both of them? The wind will move eventually. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, windmills can block each other. Windmills can be blocked by buildings. So as this wind shifts from left to right, you're going to see some of these turbines are going to put out more than others. I do love me some wind power. This stuff adds up pretty fast. Again, my goal here is I'm hoping that I'm putting together at least 800 units of power total between all these, but I am at the mercy of the wind. Let's see, what did we get so far? 450. Oh, crap, no, that's not gonna do. You know what, I guess it'll do. Just to show off one side of this, I'm actually going to use, because I want to configure it, use the branch. Why are you using the branch, Thumpa? Because the splitter splits power up evenly, and this guy, like I mentioned earlier, the maximum charge input on a battery is 4 times its output right now. So that would be 200 maximum for this, and then 400 maximum for this battery. So I want to make sure that I'm not putting out more than 200 units. If I just split it up, I'm getting whatever it is, 400 and something, 440. I'd be putting 220 into each of these, and that'd be a waste, because this would be lost. It'll take 220, it just won't do any good after the first 200. So I'm going to set this to 200. And then I'm going to take the leftover power And I'm going to bring it here. So that's 237 at the moment. So that's pretty decent. So that's enough power for these to be under full load, which they are, and still charge. So you see it's at full load and the timer's going up, capacity's going up. Same thing here, which is enough power to now charge this battery under full load. So you can see its load is now going up. It doesn't have the minimum power yet to turn on, but it will in just a moment. Every time it hits about the 5-second mark, it's going to try and power on. I think is that right? Yeah, about that. So it can kick in briefly and put out 100 units of power, but that's not enough to run all this because we need 160. Now this battery isn't charging, so that's going to be a problem. I need to come up with more power. Hopefully, bad place to put that. That's Spinnzz. Are you getting the idea here yet, man? I think I've probably answered your question at this point, so I don't know why I'm building all this out. But if you're still watching, then you're gonna see me build this. If you're not still watching, go out and make this work and kill some bitches. Well, that sounded great. Can build on my sleeping bag, obviously. Hey kids, did you know that your power sources don't have to be on attached foundations to the rest of your base? Go look at some of my really old videos where I put wind turbines on the top of cliff tops and run power all the way down to the base, because guess what? Wind turbines get a lot better power the higher up they are. So a good example of that would be put one of these up on the top of that cliff over there in the distance, drop a foundation halfway down that cliff, put a memory cell, because those don't use power, half on that foundation. You can use it as like an extension cord all the way down to your base. Does that really work? Yes, it really works. Alright, got myself a few more wind turbines going here. And you'd think being out on the island here I'd get better power, but man, not today, my friends, not today. But alas, we live. One of the advantages of the new update with the batteries now is that you don't need to use blockers to make a UPS, and so therefore you can use root combiners after batteries, so therefore you can use more of this power input to make bigger, more massive circuits than you could before. Most of my older videos, you'll find that everything is pretty much limited to, I don't need that. Everything is pretty much limited to circuits of about 90 or so units of power, 94 I think in the most efficient cases, because I wanted to keep the load small enough that a single large battery would be able to power the circuit. But now that we can put root combiners after batteries, as wasteful and inefficient as it may be at the moment, it does make it possible to make some pretty big circuits, which is super handy. Alright, so now we got some power coming in. I'm going to again set this to branch off 200. Charging this guy at max. Charging this guy, certainly not at maximum. I mean, 238 is only half of the speed it could charge at, but it's still almost double what it needs to keep up with its output load, even with the 20% efficiency loss. So now we see that these two batteries together put out 150, which is enough to keep charging this guy. These two batteries together putting out over 100, or putting out 150, enough to charge this guy. Not charging fast, by the way, as you'll see. Technically, it's putting out 100. It's getting 150 in, it loses 20%. So that means it's only actually putting in 120 units while putting out 100. So we're net 20 units a minute. So if you look at this capacity meter here, it's at 20. That's only going to go up by 20 per minute. It's going to take a really long time to charge this battery like that. How do you get around that? You could, excuse me, supplement live power into this thing. So in addition to this root combiner, you could potentially put another root combiner here on a windmill. So you're putting a raw, another 100 units in to this thing to help speed up the charge time. Otherwise, you have to wait. You have to put all your battery or source power into these batteries and just let their lower output sort of trickle charge into this guy. So it's going to take a long time to charge that way. Well, heck, this video is going super long already, so why not? Why not? Let's just do this. Take this battery. Put in here. And what can I use as an example? I'll just throw down some more solar panels. Another root combiner. I haven't actually tested this yet, so maybe wrong here. But in theory, even with the bugs, in theory this should work. Adding an extra 40 units of power here, so now we have 190 coming in. Granted, this has nothing to do with extending life, but it does charge this battery faster. So you see it's ticking up faster now. So now instead of putting 20 units of power in here, we're actually putting 20 plus the 40 from those solar panels, or the extra 20 plus the 40 from those solar panels. So we're actually getting, well, there is the efficiency loss there. So technically, because you're all going to make me do the math. I know you're going to make me do the math. 190 times 0.8 is 152. So that's 100. That's 52 units of power extra that we're putting in per minute to raise this charge. So you'll see this capacity, it's at 86, 87. That's going to go up by 52 a minute now instead of 20 a minute. So that'll charge this battery a lot faster. So that's a good way to potentially do this. So Spinnzz, your question was how little power do you have to send them to the batteries to charge them? Really, if you're chaining them like this, all you need is the 125 actually to charge them. You said charge, so 126, and this is 63 for basically stasis, so we'll say 64. So if you say 126 plus 64, 190 units of power, the minimum you would need to put into these is 190. You've got two sets of these. So that's actually 380. So you need to generate a minimum of 380 units of power to have this scenario charge. It would charge painfully and almost worthlessly slow at that little of power. So I would strongly recommend going bigger than that. But that would be the minimum that you would need to put in to keep this circuit flowing. And assuming, of course, that you charge all of these batteries all the way up to full, you'll get 4 hours out of these. You'll get 3 hours out of this because the medium battery can only do 3 hours under full load. So it would be the lowest common denominator here. It's going to die first. This thing will still put power in, so it will extend the batteries a little bit longer. Even after this guy dies, but this one's going to discharge quicker. So what you'd actually see in practice is these two batteries aren't going to die first. If they're fully charged and these are fully charged, when you lose your source power, these are going to drop, but they're going to keep refilling this battery. So these are going to drop, and then as soon as you get 3 hours in, this is going to no longer provide charge. So then this battery is going to start dropping because it's only getting 100 units from here, which is not enough to keep this charged. It will drop very slowly. We can simulate that. watch this. I'll take the medium battery off, and now you can see it's going to start dropping. Not very fast, because it's still getting 80 units from the large battery, or its 100 at 80% efficiency is going to put 80 units in. So it's going to drop slowly, and then as soon as a large battery runs out of power, then it's going to run at full speed because it's under full load. So now you can see that clock is actually dropping in real time, and we're down to a minute and 50 seconds. So it makes a pretty big difference to have these extra batteries fronted, because it does actually, once you get this 150 on here, now you're charging. So now you see that clock starts going up again, and the charge level starts going up again. So there you go. 15 turrets, 4 large batteries, plus I had to cheat and put 2 mediums in here to actually make this able to charge. Need a minimum of 380 units of power coming in, split between these two, 190 on each pair of these batteries, in order to maintain and increase charge just slightly. But the more power you put in, the faster these are going to charge, up to 4 times their output size. So up to 200 in the medium, up to 400 in the large. And so if you did have a ton of input power, like these wind turbines were actually freaking spinning, where's the damn wind? You could put 200 in here, you could put 400 in here, same over here. That would be, let's see, 600 on each side. So 1200 units of power. You charge these at their maximum rate. And even then, if you really wanted to maximize your charge rate, remember you're only putting 150 into here, which means you could technically put another 250 units of power into each of these, in addition to the extended runtime battery add-on here. So that would be another 500. So if you built yourself as much as 1700 units of power input, it would not be wasted. It would just make all 6 of these batteries charge at their maximum possible speed, which would be great, because then, you know, got limited daylight hours, although we're not necessarily using solar only here. But if you wanted to do it with solar, you could do that. That would be 1700 units of solar. Oh goodness, can I even do the math on that? 85 solar panels. That'd be pretty sexy. Somebody show me 85 solar panels on a roof, all root combined, coming down to power this big old battery setup. That would look pretty cool. So there you go, Spinnzz. I hope that answers your question in the longest, windiest, slowest. Everybody tells me they want to see me actually build this stuff. So if you don't, sorry, that isn't my usual 5-minute video. But there it is, start to finish. Lots of stuff, looks cool, and leverages the mechanic of the new batteries. Good luck, and don't suck.